So in the last week, what we have done is we have created a virtual machine that was in a different subscription. Now I have created another account for myself, okay, which we can use for the demo purpose. Okay, so here I have created a one single virtual machine here. If you can see, that's a virtual machine which I've created for a demo purpose. All right. So in last lecture, what we have gone through is we have gone through the creation process of virtual machine, and we have seen, in detail like what all that blades is and what are the properties that we need to configure in order to deploy a virtual machine. Okay. So we have seen all that in the last week. Now we'll start with the virtual machine. So now let's consider that you have successfully created a virtual machine, and when you click on a virtual machine, you see something like that. So let's say this is a virtual machine blade, wherein this is a VM that you have created. And if you click on this one, you see something like this. Okay, so we'll explain each and every tab here. Okay, and the properties that we have on the right side as well. Okay, so let's get started. But again, I'm asking like any doubt in terms of virtual machine creation?
No,
No doubts, right?
So
no.
Okay, perfect. So now this is the virtual machine that we have created, and in the overview blade, you see that this is the essential properties of the virtual machine. Okay, and in this one, what it says, the first option it says in which resource group that you have deployed this virtual machine. Okay, so I've named that resource group as an AZ-104 3RI. Okay, the current status of this virtual machine is running. Okay, and to which location it is deployed to? The location is the UK South and the Zone 1. So can anyone tell me what is this Zone 1? What it is referring to? We have covered it in last lecture. Where do we need to configure the zone?
while creating the virtual machine, we get the option of
Mhm.
creating a zone, wherein you can choose which area or which country or which data center you want to create a virtual machine in. So zone will be that location where you're creating the virtual
Yeah.
machine.
And client also can suggest us like which zone, in which zone they want us to. Sorry, in the region, right? Sorry.
That's the region basically. That's what I'm saying. The one that you're saying that is region. Okay.
Okay.
What is the zone? Do you remember when we were creating a virtual machine, we got three zones, three available options, right? Zone one,
Yes.
zone two, and zone three for a particular region. What was that?
Regarding the data center,
Correct.
availability of that one.
Correct, right. Yeah. So it is all about the availability of that particular resource. Okay. So what is happening is when you go and create a resource in a particular region, let's say, for example, you are deploying a resource in a central India. Okay. And in central India, there are three data centers which are available with the three different geographical location. So it will give you a three different zones basically. Okay. So now the current replication for this particular virtual machine which I've deployed, that is in the one zone. Okay. That is not replicated across the number of zones which are available in the particular region, that is UK South. Okay, so that is nothing but a zone. After that, if you see subscription, all right, so in which subscription it is deployed, so currently it is under the free trial subscription. Okay, and now, after that, you get an option basically to move a resource from one subscription to another one. Okay, but that we'll see in the later part of lectures, maybe because this is something which is not required for us to cover. Okay, but you might get a couple of questions around like can we move a resource from one subscription to another? So yes, it is possible. So this is something which comes around kind of limitations or the boundaries of the Azure resources. Okay, so definitely that is possible, but we'll cover it maybe at the end of the sessions because I'll send you a list of limitations that we have with the Azure. All right. Then after that, you have a subscription ID. That is nothing but a grid which is generated for the subscription or an individual resource to provide an identity for the resource itself. Okay. The second is availability zone. So we know that the zone one is selected. So at the moment, so what it says, availability zone is set to one. Okay. Now we'll see on the right hand side which operating system is running on this particular virtual machine. That is nothing but the Windows Server 2020 22 data center. Okay. And what is the size of the VM? That is a standard B1S. Okay. That's a very bare minimum, which has a one virtual CPU and 1 gigs of memory. Okay. That's the size of this VM. What is the public IP of this virtual machine? That is 20.77.3.166. Okay. Why do we need to have a public IP? It is because to go and have a public appearance for this particular virtual machine. Because let's say, for an example, if you are hosting any sort of an application, definitely you need to go and publish that application to the internet, right? So for that purpose, you need to have a public facing IP address or a identity. So in that case, what we could do is we could at least provision a IP address for a virtual machine, or we can have a DNS. Okay, that is like your domain.com or something like that to identify a resource. Okay. So after that, the next option is virtual network and subnet, right? So we have seen like why do we need a virtual network? Okay. So in order to go and deploy a virtual machine, we need to go and have a virtual network and a subnet. So this is the name of a virtual network, that is AZ-104 VM VNet, and the default is nothing but the name of a subnet. So whatever after slash is nothing but the name of a subnet. Okay. And you can create a number of subnet as per your choice. Okay. Like how you're growing with your application, you can create or you can segregate the application resources, and you can place the resources accordingly in a particular subnets. Okay. After that, you have a DNS
Yeah,
name. Okay.
just question about virtual network.
Yeah.
Do we have to create a virtual network before we create the virtual machine, or it is a default?
Yes. Yeah. So in the last week, if you remember, while creating a virtual machine, it is mandated to go and have a virtual network in place. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is mandatory. Just consider like whatever that you are deploying in a in a infrastructure as a service resources, a virtual network is mandatory. Okay, but that's not the case for the PaaS resources. That is a platform as a service. But whatever you are deploying in an infrastructure as a service, you need to go and have a virtual network.
Okay.
Okay. The next one is the DNS name, which I was talking about. So DNS name is nothing but a domain name for this particular virtual machine. So let's say if you want to go and have a DNS name. So let's see if I click on, at the moment it says it's not configured. Okay. But if I click on here, configured, I'll have to put a name of this virtual machine. So for an example, what I'll do is I can just go and put a name of this VM. Okay. Now what it says, the domain name is invalid. It may contain below. Okay. So it has a validation error basically. So what I can do is I can just remove this hyphen. Okay. And I can match the name. Maybe so something like uh, easy 3 RIVM. Oh, sorry. It needs to be in the lowercase itself. Easy 3 RIVM. It will be the one. Okay. So when I click on this, this option DNS label, I have to put a name, okay, and then after that, it has an extension that is called .uksoft.cloudapp.azure.com. Okay, so this is a by default suffix which is given by Microsoft for this particular resource. You do not have an authority to go and change it. Okay, you just need to go and change this name, or you have that authority to. You can go and name it as per your choice. Okay, but now you must be having a question. Let's say if I'm hosting a flipkart.com on this virtual machine and I want myself to be recognized over the internet with the name that is flipkart.com. So how will I go and put this URL? So for that, what do we need to do is we have to go to our domain provider. Let's say you have purchased a domain from GoDaddy, okay, flipkart.com. So what you will do is you will make an entry in GoDaddy so that whenever the traffic is hitting to your flipkart.com, that will be redirected to the URL, which is easy3rivm001.uksout.cloudapp.azure.com. Okay, and it will land to this particular virtual machine's path that you have configured. Okay, and there are two stages of this public IP address. The one is static and the second is dynamic. Okay, so as the word suggests, static, as it will remain static throughout, you have the life of that particular resource. But dynamic is something, let's say for an example, you have a virtual machine, but you have restarted the virtual machine. So what Azure does is Azure goes and capture this particular IP address and it may use it for some other resource. Okay, and whenever you will start back that virtual machine, Microsoft will provide you another public IP address. That is nothing but a dynamic allocation. Any questions? Srikanth sir,
Uh,
I guess you were speaking or Sanket?
Uh, Dynamic means will there be a range?
No, no, no. See,
Okay.
you cannot go and specify any range into it. Okay. So whenever the public IP assignment is being done from the Azure, it is up to Azure, like whichever the IP is available, Azure will go and assign it to you. Okay. You cannot go and specify a range for it. But the only difference is once you choose the public IP address as in static, it will remain as it is until unless you have that resource live with Azure. Okay. Once you delete a resource, that public IP will also get deleted. Okay, but in case of a dynamic, what happens? Let's say I'll not configure across it, and after that, let's say if I go and stop this virtual machine or I'll restart it. So what will happen is Microsoft will deallocate this public IP address from this virtual machine, and Microsoft will allocate a new public IP address. Okay, but when we are dealing with an application, okay, so that time we have to go with the static IP address. So now another question, like why to go then static is the constant one, why to go with the dynamic? See, again, there is a costing difference. Okay, so if you are just using a virtual machine as a jump box to access your few services, okay, wherein you're not hosting your actual application, so in that point what you can do is you can go with the dynamic public IP, so wherein you don't have to do with the public IP address. Whenever you want to connect to this particular resource, what you can do is you can capture the IP address from here and you can connect via RDP session. Okay, but when you are hosting an application, you need a constant identity for this particular resource, right? So that time what we can do is we can go with the static IP address,
Okay.
right?
Understood. Yes.
Clear?
Yes. Yes. Sure.
Okay. Anyone has any doubts?
No.
No. Okay, perfect. Right. Health state is something which is kind of it goes and check the health for the virtual machine. I guess that we have seen while configuring a virtual machine properties. Okay, that's it. A time created is I have created this time like May 11, 2024. Okay. And that's a UTC time. That's the time when I created this virtual machine. All right. Now, under to this, you see there are properties bleed here. Okay. That is nothing but a detailed description of like, a virtual machine. Then it has a couple of other options like monitoring water capabilities, some recommendations. All right. So that will go through. So in the virtual machine, you see the name of the computer, operating system. So these things are very self-explanatory. Okay. So now at the moment, what we have done is we have deployed a virtual machine or provision a virtual machine with the very plain or vanilla configuration. At the moment, we don't have any sort of fancy configuration. Why not? Because it will be difficult for you guys to understand. Because I have seen like you guys are new to Azure, so if you go with the fancy configuration, it would be confusing, or that may lead to misconception of the concepts that we have in Azure. Okay, so we may go with the fancy configuration in the later part of lecture, but for now we'll just go with this plain configuration. So if you see here, like we don't have this proximity placement group configured. Okay, or this capacity reservation group. So that is something that we have to take care once we have a better understanding of the basics of an Azure virtual machine. Okay. Now, after that, availability and the scaling, right? So the zone that we have configured, that is one. If you want, you can go and edit it and you can make it to two or three. Okay. Then the security type, right? So security type is set to trusted launch virtual machine. Okay. So that is the default security which is being provided by Microsoft Azure. Okay. Enable security bot enable, VTPM that is enabled, integrity monitoring that is disabled at the moment. Health monitoring, which we have not configured. Do we have any sort of an extension or application which are which are needs to be installed with this virtual machine? So at the moment we don't have anything. Okay. On the right hand side, that's a networking blade, wherein we see what is the public IP that address that is assigned to this particular resource. That is this one, and then after that we see a network interface. Okay, so I'll explain what is the network interface in the networking blade. Okay, public IP address range, that is IPv6 or IPv4. No, so we don't have that IPv6 address. That is the IPv4 address basically. Okay, so and what is the private IP address? That's a 10.0.0.4. Now you must be having a question like from where this public IP address is coming. So if you scroll up a bit here, you see a virtual network. Okay, so if you click on this virtual network, there is a range of IP that you need to specify, but that is a private IP, not a public IP. Okay, you cannot go and specify a range for a public IP, but you have that authority to go and specify a range for a private IP. Okay, why? Because that private IP is something which can be used internally in Azure to go and recognize the Azure services. All right, so that is the only reason we have that authority to go and select the private IP. Okay, again, the virtual network and the subnet, that's the name of the VNet, and then default is the name of the subnet. DNS is not configured at the moment. What is the size of the virtual machine that we are going with? That is standard B1MS virtual CPUs is one. That's the configuration, basically 1 gigs of RAM. Okay. Source image details, right? So as in last lectures we have seen, there are a couple of other publishers or the partners who are available with Microsoft, so they can go and create a custom image and they can publish it to the Azure portal, so a public can go and use it as per their requirement. Okay, so for that, best example I've given is like, let's say if any of the application which requires a custom software needs to be installed with specific network setting, specific user setting that needs to be there. So what this publishers or the partner does is they go and create a virtual machine with this with a specific requirement, and they publish it to Azure. Okay, so let's say tomorrow you are as in working with an Azure admin team. Okay, and you also got the same requirement to go and deploy that sort of virtual machine with the configuration which is specified already. You can just go and onboard, or you can provision that virtual machine from the marketplace, rather than investing your time in creating or installing that software and then managing a network bit. So that could be a time consuming for you, right? So just to get through all that stuff, what we do is we go with the a different publisher which are available with Azure. But for this particular virtual machine, the source image publisher is Microsoft itself. Okay, source image offer is again Windows Server, and the plan is 2022 data center. Okay, now, the next option is disk. That is nothing but the OS disk, okay, the one that we are using for hosting our operating system, and a temporary disk. Okay, so that is nothing but the Azure managed disk. Why? Because Azure has a full control on that disk. Okay, so what sort of an operation if I as a user want to perform, I can do it, but Azure also has an authority to go and perform any sort of operation on the disk. Why? Because there is a OS disk which is attached to this particular virtual machine that is being managed by Azure. Because you don't need to go and install an operating system, right? Microsoft is giving you a ready operating system install things. It's just that you need to put up a username and password and you can access the virtual machine, right? So that's the reason Microsoft has a full control on it. Then next one is auto shutdown, right? So we have seen it, auto shutdown. What is it? Auto shutdown facility. Can anyone please tell me why do we need that?
Like out of business hours, if that's is not being used, then can auto shut down.
Correct, right. So, out of a business hours, let's say you're working 9 to 6, okay, and you're not required to use this virtual machine after 6. What you can do is you can set up a scheduler wherein auto shutdown. So, what will happen is this virtual machine will be shut down every day at 7 p.m. Okay, so it will help you to reduce the cost. Why? Because your virtual machine again works in a pay as you go model. Okay, so for number of hours that you will use this virtual machine, you will be charged for that particular hours only. Okay. And the next is Azure Spot. Can anyone tell me what is Azure Spot?
No idea.
No, as you need to speak up.
No idea.
किसी को भी याद नहीं है what is Azure Spot instance. Bhushan, Nakshita, guys, you are not speaking today.
Does it have to relate with the pay as you go? Uh,
Not exactly.
like if it is not being used, then it okay.
You're very near to it, Sanket, I guess, but not something related to pay as you go. But the last bit that you said, like not in use or in use capacity, something. It's
Yeah,
related to that only.
right.
So,
Example.
mhm. Go ahead,
Uh,
please.
can't give exact example, but if suppose the capacity like that has been taken at the time of purchasing this VM,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
in suppose we are not using it, that time Azure can take that capacity back, and they can give it in a spot discounts, like they can give us some discount initially, and that is the spot Azure, like uh, they give us a capacity more than what is required, like if we want to purchase it, and later on they can take it back, like, because if some other client comes up, and if they if the load on that data center is more,
Mm-hmm.
that time they can take that space back and they can utilize for some other client.
Perfect. Perfect. Right. So that is nothing but the Azure Spot. So I guess Sanket has explained to it, and that's very correct. I hope everyone understood. Okay. So that is nothing but the Azure Spot instance. Okay. So now we have gone with this basics of this one that is there in the properties. Now we'll go with the monitoring section. Okay. So in the monitoring, what do we have is there are a couple of performance metrics and all. Okay. That we can have it somewhere in the this section as well, where it is gone. Just a second. Should be here. Right. So this is the monitoring blade wherein we have a number of options like insights, alerts, metrics, logs, workbooks. Okay. So that is nothing but that we'll see here in the monitoring blade. Capabilities is what we can do with this particular virtual machine. So what are the capabilities by default available with the Azure in order to get through with this virtual machine? So again, like Azure policy, right? So what it says like apply safeguard and business rules to your virtual machine. So if you have any sort of a business rules or any security things that you need to cover up, what you can do is you can always go and make a use of a default Azure policy, or you can create a custom policy and you can assign it to that virtual machine to make it compliant or to follow the security guidelines for the organization that you're working. Okay. Then the business admin center, sorry, Windows Admin Center, that is manage your virtual machine with the familiar functionality of the Windows Admin Center. Basically, it acts as an admin center. Okay, so if any one of you work with a server operating system wherein and you need to go and configure a couple of things with the there's this server. Okay, so for that purpose there is a Windows Admin Center. Okay, then a defender for a cloud. Okay, again, so defender for a cloud is something which comes as an security postures for this cloud services, right? So it protects your service from the some sort of threats that are coming to your resources, or that will give you a recommendation to make your resource security compliant. Okay, for that purpose what we have to do is we have to go and onboard a defender for cloud. So a basic like defender has a plan basically, a P1 and P2 plan basically. So there is a one free plan which comes along with all of the default resources. Okay, so I guess that a default plan is there with this virtual machine. Then the next bit is backup, right? So obviously, like let's say for an example, if you are hosting any database service or any sort of important data on this particular virtual machine, okay, and though you have this availability set and availability region which is configured for this virtual machine, but you are more concerned about your data. So what you can do is you can always take a backup of your virtual machine data. Okay, so what will happen is you can always have that backup in handy. Let's say if in case if any of this virtual machine goes down, or you can use that backup and you can redeploy a virtual machine and use the same backup. Okay. Disaster recovery is again kind of same thing. What it says like replicate your virtual machine to another Azure region. So, for an example, now let's say you have deployed this virtual machine in UK South, and if you want this virtual machine to be replicated to another region, okay. So, in that particular one, what you can do is you can configure a disaster recovery. So, from UK South, a replication will be set up to, for an example, East US region, okay. So, your entire virtual machine will be replicated to that particular region, okay. Updates again. Uh, Someone dropped, I guess. Just a second. Push it. Okay. So update is something which is related to host operating system update that we have to take care as an Azure admin, right? So Microsoft has an option to schedule auto update for your virtual machine, so that you can do or manage with the update center. Okay, and auto shutdown is that we have seen. Insight is something which can help you to monitor, or which can help you with the logging basically. Okay, so application insight is specifically used with the PaaS services that are very common, like in web app or the function app. Okay, but here in the virtual machine as well, you have that provision that you can integrate app insight with this virtual machine. Okay, so it will help you to monitor the logging. So for that purpose, what you need to do is you need to go and install an agent on a virtual machine. But for this one, this is the Azure managed virtual machine, so you have a predefined agent, or by default agent, which is installed on the virtual machine. So what that agent does is that captures the event, whatever the activity is being performed on the virtual machine. Let's say if it's related to an application or any sort of configuration changes, operating system changes, it captures that event and it sends that events to the monitoring agent that we have configured. So in our case, let's say if we have an application insight which is configured, what it does is it goes and sends those events to app insight. Okay, and in the app insight blade, you will be able to track all the details which are there, or the all the activities which is happening on the virtual machine. Same thing happens over the PaaS services as well, but that we'll see when we'll look into the platform as a service. All right, the web app and the function app kind of things. Okay. Next bit is recommendation. So I've recently deployed this resource. So at the moment, it is there is no recommendation which is generated. It says it's compliant basically, and these are the default training which are available. If you want to go with the default Microsoft things, you can check these videos, and these are the blog articles which are there. Okay. So this is nothing but a overview page basically for the Azure. Okay, we'll go with this top options here. But any doubt in this one, guys? कुछ समझा कुछ नहीं समझा? Anything that you feel that concept is not clear, थोड़ा dicey है, कुछ लग रहा है ऐसा?
I have no question.
No questions?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Same as
No questions.
hello, audible.
Yes. Yes, Bhushan. Yeah, your voice is not audible. I mean, we can barely hear you. Guys, okay, no issues. But if you have any sort of questions, queries, you can put it in the chat or you can speak up. Okay, and we'll take it further.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, now at the top you see an option which is connect. Okay, so as word suggests that you want to connect to this virtual machine, right? So while connecting to a virtual machine, there are three ways. Okay, let's open a whiteboard and then maybe I'll try to explain this for you. Okay, let's say for an example, this is
I'm
it.
audible now. Sorry. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I want to know.
We will lost to Bhushan again, I guess. There's some interruption.
Only by script shell script, I guess.
Guys, is he audible to you or is just case for me?
No, no,
No,
can't hear him clearly.
Okay,
voice is breaking.
Okay, there is a
breaking. Yeah.
network issue at
Bhushan, what
my
you
end
can
today.
do? Yeah,
Okay, no issue.
you can put up your query in the chat maybe, and then we'll try to answer it by the end of this lecture. Okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So, guys, this is the virtual machine. Okay. Now, what are the different ways to connect to this virtual machine? sorry for this kind of diagrams, but this is what I can do my best in terms of creating a diagram. Right? But I'll just explain it what it is. Right. So what we were looking at is connect option, basically how to connect to a Azure virtual machine, right? So let's say this is a virtual machine which is provisioned in Azure. All right. So now what we are doing is we are trying to connect to this virtual machine over the public internet. Okay. But now when you're trying to connect to this virtual machine, definitely you need to have something, a public identity, in order to go and access this VM. Okay. So the public identity is nothing but a IP address. Which, okay. So with the help of an IP address or a DNS, what you can do is you can connect to this virtual machine. Okay. So the first option, that is nothing but an RDP. Okay. So if I want to connect to this virtual machine with the help of an RDP, remote desktop protocol, so what I can do is I can always go to RDP here. Okay, which is by default available in all of the Windows operating system. Okay, and if it's a Linux operating system, what do we need to do is we need to use a software that is called putty. Okay, or there is a way that you can, with the help of a PowerShell or a command it, a default command is generated in Azure itself. You can use that command and you can connect to that Linux virtual machine with the help of a PowerShell as well. Okay, but that I'll show you in the later part of lecture, not today. So today we'll focus on the Windows virtual machine. So in the first option, it says that you have to go and connect to the virtual machine with the help of an RDP. Okay, so I'll click on RDP here. Now what I need to do is I need to go and capture a virtual machine, IP address. Okay, so that's the IP address of my virtual machine. Okay, I'll just try to put the IP address here. After that, what is the port that I'm using to access this virtual machine? So keep in mind that the port number 3389 is used to RDP to virtual machine. Okay, I've mentioned that you can always go and change this port number, that I'll show you how to do that. But for now, just keep in mind that's a standard port number. Okay, across the internet, 3389 is something that can be used to access the resources via RDP. Okay, so I'll click on this one and I'll click on connect. Okay, after that, it gives me an option to connect to this virtual machine. But definitely for that, I need to put up my credentials. Okay, so I'll just put my username, this one, and I'll put up my password. Just a second. All right, so I'll just click on OK here. So after clicking on OK here, and if I click on yes, what it will do, it will allow me a connection and it will help me to connect to this virtual machine. So now this will, yeah, so this is loading and now you see that I'm logging into that virtual machine. So this is the first way of logging to a virtual machine with the help of a RDP credentials. Okay, let's wait for this one. Just a second. Okay, so this will load, but at the moment we are not very much concerned about like what it will display, but it will just display a normal a desktop for you that you use. All right, so this is how you can go and do an RDP to a virtual machine. Okay, right. But Microsoft has introduced couple of other options as well. The second is the Bastion, and the third one is the just-in-time access. Okay, so any idea, guys, why Microsoft has another option? Well, they have this very easy option to connect to this service. Why Microsoft introduced another options to connect to this VM?
No idea.
What could be the reason?
Maybe the security is more on Bastion.
Hmm. Correct. So exactly. So what is happening is now, let's say we are working as an Azure admin and we have a team basically. Okay. So what has happened is like I've deployed this virtual machine wherein I'm hosting a couple of other services. But by mistakenly, what has happened is Sanket is also, let's say for example, Sanket is also working with me. Okay. So I have given the credentials to Sanket, like this is the virtual machine IP address, this is the port number. Then I have provided my username and the password. But what has happened is Sanket has forgot that credential. He has written it somewhere and he forgot to delete it or scrap it. And if someone who is very much aware of these things, he got the credentials handy with him. So he has a public IP address, the port number, username, and the password. He can also go to his machine or laptop. He can do an RDP and he can also go and access my resource. So definitely it's a security breach for us, right? Why? Because he got the credentials, my credential got compromised by mistakenly, and now he has an access, and there is no way that he can go and track RDP sessions, like who is accessing. So definitely there is a way to go and check the activity from which location the this is particular is being accessed. But by that time, if the person is very well known of things, he might go and there is a chances of stealing your data, or misconfiguration of your source code that you have. Okay, so that could be a problem that will arise. So that is the reason what Microsoft does. Microsoft has introduced couple of other options in order to provide a secure RDP session to the end clients. Okay, so now let's see the second one, that is the Bastion. So Bastion is something which gives you or which provides you an access to a virtual machine that is under browser-based access. Okay, so in the backend, what it does is Microsoft, let's say, so this is a virtual machine. Let me draw in another diagram quickly. Mm, okay. So I guess it's covering up. So what we can do is like, let's consider that this is the virtual machine, and on the outer layer we have a virtual network. Okay. So inside a virtual network we have a virtual machine. Okay. So what Microsoft does is, let me draw a diagram. Maybe VNet. Okay. Inside that we have a small subnet. Okay. Subnet one. Okay. Now, this is a virtual network. Inside this virtual network, we have a virtual machine. Okay. Now, in this one, what I've done is I have deployed this virtual machine in a subnet one. Okay. Now, what Microsoft does is Microsoft tries to access this virtual machine internally. How it does is Microsoft provision another subnet with the name of Azure Bastion. Okay. And what Microsoft does is Microsoft deploy a Bastion service. See, Bastion is a kind of a service that help you to access Azure resource over the private IP on a public internet. Got it? This could be a bit confusing, but try to understand. So Microsoft is again not exposing the public IP of this virtual machine. What Microsoft is doing is Microsoft handling all that operation inside this virtual network. Okay. So it is acting on a private IP itself. Okay. But what it does is create another subnet, which is with the name of Azure Bastion subnet. Okay. And on that Bastion subnet, it deploys a Bastion service. Okay. So with the help of a Bastion service, it will provide you a URL basically. So that private IP is being mapped to that URL, okay, which Azure will generate. And that URL will help you to access this virtual machine over the browser. Got it? It means what will happen is, just a second. Oh, right. So it means that what will happen is this particular Azure. Now, if I go and try to access this virtual machine, if I click on a Bastion option here, okay, let's wait for this. Okay, so deploy Bastion, that's an automatic way, and configure manually. Okay, so if I deploy it now, I'll just show you a network basically. So we can network settings. So see, this is the virtual network, and here we have a one subnet that is called a default subnet. And inside that default subnet, what has happened is we have a virtual machine which is hosted. Okay, I'll close it out. I'll close this again. I'll go back to this Bastion option here. Okay, and what I'll do, I'll just go and click on it, deploy Bastion. Okay, in the meantime, I'll show you Bastion here. So at the moment, you see that there is no Bastion service which is created here. Okay, so you see any Bastion service created? No. But now what will happen is, since we have initiated a Bastion service creation for this virtual machine, it will go and create or onboard a Bastion service for this VM. Okay, so once this configuration is completed, what you will see, most probably you will see another subnet which is created with the Azure Bastion name. Okay, and inside that Azure Bastion subnet, you will see a Bastion server gets created. Okay, and after once this process is completed, you will be having a browser-based URL that you can use to access this virtual machine. Okay, so what it will do, it provides you security aspects wherein it is trying to access your virtual machine over the private IP. Okay, common dot again, I guess. So, okay, all right. So it will go and try to access this virtual machine over the bastion. Okay, so that's one option. The second one is just-in-time access. Okay, so in the meantime, what like let this bastion service provision, and then I'll show you how exactly we can go and access the resource with the bastion. Okay, the third one is that is just-in-time access. So what that just-in-time access means? It means that you need to you need to specify a time range. Okay, let's say if you want to perform any sort of an operation that would take another like an hour or 2 hours. Okay, so what you can do is you can provision that particular virtual machine, or you can access that particular virtual machine for only for 2 to 3 hours. Okay, and you need to provide an IP address from which IP address you want this virtual machine to be accessed. Okay, so if I go to this particular virtual machine, and if I check the IP address, let's say it will generate an IP. So if let me show you, if you go here and if you say what is my IP. Okay, so it will give you a IP address basically. Okay, so that is nothing but my public IP address for this particular machine from where I'm accessing an internet. So this is the public IP for my virtual machine. So when you go and onboard a just-in-time service, what it does is it asks you for how many long you want to access this virtual machine. Let's say I put in like 4 hours. That's the hour that I want to access the virtual machine. From which IP or IP range you want to go and access this virtual machine. Okay, so what I will do, if I want to access this particular virtual machine from this IP, I will just put this IP address. And then after that, it will create an RDP file for me. So I can use that RDP file to go and access this virtual machine. So in that case, what will happen, how we are taking care of the security measure here? It is that we will be having an access only from this IP. Okay, so that virtual machine is accessible from this IP address only, and only for the specific hours that we have specified there. Okay, so it will go and secure the access to this virtual machine. Okay, that is nothing but a just-in-time access. But at the moment, we'll not be able to go and provision just-in-time access. Why? It is because that is coming under a Microsoft Defender, the one that we have seen. It is CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management. That is coming under a plan 2, which is the costly, which has a higher costing. And for the default plan, we cannot go and onboard that Defender plan 2. Okay, so that could be the reason that we are not able to see the actual service. But I do have it enabled for a couple of other virtual machines which are part of my organization that I will show you later. Okay, but this is how the just-in-time service access. But if you just want to see what all options there in the configuration, I will show you. So maybe we can check a couple of images here. Mm-mm. This one could be the best one. Right, you see, when you go to the connect option, you have this option RDP, right? But in this one, when you are going with a just-in-time access, it gives you an option to source IP, to select a source IP. That is nothing but my IP, or you can say, if you, let's say if you are trying to access this virtual machine over the a corporate network or VPN. Okay, so it has a range of IP. So in order to do so, what you can do is you can click on all configured IPs, and you can put a range of IP address for the organization's VPN. Okay, and from here you can go and access this virtual machine. So what will happen is you will be able to access that virtual machine over to the that particular VPN IP range or that particular IP that you have provided. Okay, so once you click on a request access, what will happen is it will generate a RDP file for you. Okay, and then you can double click and you can access that service. Got it? In the meantime, we'll check if the Bastion is provisioned. See, but again, since we have a Bastion service, but if you go with the costing for a Bastion, that is very costly. Okay, so there are a couple of workaround or different ways that you can configure it, okay, in the networking blade as well. So rather than configuring, so eventually, when you start working with Azure, you will get to know, you will come with so many other things that are with the costing, okay. So there's this sort of costly services that will again create a headache for you in terms of costing. So you always need to go and find a workaround for all of these things as an Azure admin. So there's a workaround that we use always, that is under the network settings. So what we do is we create a inbound rule basically for a port, okay, wherein what do we do in the source, we just mention the range or the IP range for my VPN basically, okay. And with this simple rule, we can actually go and access this virtual machine. Okay, so you don't need to go and deploy this costly service like a Bastion or something. All right, so that's how we can go and take care of it. But we'll just wait for this Bastion to be deployed. Again, any doubt into it? Did you guys understood what is RDP, what is Bastion, and what is just in time?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
I just have doubt with just in time, like how can someone log into uh the VM via just in time? Like, is it through the portal or like, because in RDP I know like we do the RDP, but
Mm-hmm.
and then Bastion I can see through Azure portal, maybe we can log into the
Via
VM.
browser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I'm not sure how do we log in when it comes to just in time.
Right. So see that I will explain, but since you have asked, I'll just show you in the in this meantime this Bastion gets deployed. So
Okay.
you see here just-in-time policy that is unsupported by plan. Why it is? Because there should be a plan, right? Yeah. So if you see here, just-in-time policy requires Microsoft Defender for Server P2 plan to be enabled on this subscription. Okay, so in order to access this particular virtual machine with the just-in-time access, you need to go and enable this Defender Server P2 plan, which is again a costly service and which we are not supposed to do it with the a trial subscription. Okay, but
All right.
your question was how to access the service with the just-in-time access, right? So
Yes.
normally when you go and try to access this virtual machine over a RDP file, what you do is either you go with a RDP here, RDP option, and you put a username and password. Sorry, IP address, port number, username and password, and you go and accept, right? But there is another way that you can do is you can always download a RDP file. Okay, so I need to choose a location basically where I can go and actually download a RDP file. So just a second, let me find the location. Right. So this is the location wherein I have chosen or I have downloaded my RDP file. If I click on open here, if I double click here, what it does is again it provides me the same utility to go and connect to this particular virtual machine. I just need to put up my password and I'll be able to access this virtual machine. Now, this is with the normal RDP. What is with the just-in-time access? See, there is no difference with the just-in-time access. Only the difference while configuring a just-in-time access policy is you get an option here basically to go and select the IP address. Okay, or you get an option to select the time frame for what time frame that you want to access this virtual machine. Let's say you're selecting it for 4 hours, and you're trying to access this virtual machine from your public IP of your VM. Once you put up a details, again, you will get the same option that is download an RDP file. Okay. And with the help of that, you can access this virtual machine with the just-in-time access. Okay. There is no difference with that. Only you get an option to specify the time range and the specific IP from which you are trying to access this VM. Sanket, clear? Hai?
Ye- Yes. Where do we put the time, like time frame and all that? Like, where
That's
can
what
we
I'm saying.
select
Yes.
the
See,
range of?
that you will, yeah, you will see this option when you onboard a just-in-time policy. And for that, you need to
Okay,
go and have
sorry.
a yeah, Defender plan.
Got it, got it. It
Just
will
to
be
see.
displayed over here on this page. Okay, got it.
right? Now, so we are clear with the RDP and just in time. Now the Bastion which is remaining. Okay, so we'll start with the Bastion service here. Okay, so as I said, like if you go into the networking here, inside a virtual network, let's say, as I said, like you see, there is another subnet which is created with the name Azure Bastion subnet. Okay, which has a specific internal IP range. And after that, if you jump onto a Bastion, yeah, if you see, there's the Bastion service which got deployed. Okay. So what Microsoft is doing now, Microsoft is creating another subnet in my inside my virtual network, which can be, to access this virtual machine internally with the help of a private IP. And there's a Bastion service which gets created, which is deployed inside that Bastion subnet. Okay. Now, if I close it out, if I go back to my virtual machine, if I click on this one, and if I click on a Bastion option here, okay, so it gives me an option. So currently it says that the provisioning state is succeeded. Okay, and the authentication method is a VM password, definitely, because we are not using any sort of keywords or anything. Okay, so definitely we will go and put up a username. So I'll just put up my username here, and the password something like that. Now you get a checkbox here basically to open in a new browser tab. And if I click on connect here, so just a second. Sorry, yeah. So now, after entering the username and the password, you get an option to connect. So if you see here a checkbox open in a new browser tab. Okay, why? It's because if I uncheck this box and if I click on connect, it will open a IDP session or a virtual machine inside this blade itself. Okay, but I want it to be in a separate tab. I'll click on connect. You see, it has a random bastion.azure.com URL, and now it is trying to connect to this virtual machine. See, over the browser. Right? So that is nothing but a Bastion service. Now you see my server manager console, which is opening here. If I close it down, you see that's another virtual machine, which is accessible over the browser. Okay. Got it, guys? How we are accessing a service over the Bastion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is how we are trying to access this service over the Bastion. But now, see again, just a heads up for you guys, this Bastion service is a costly service. Okay, not all of the Azure admins can go and afford it. So rather than going with this sort of costly service, as the workaround that I said it, you can go and always set up a new inbound portal, which can be allowed only to a specific IPs or your VNet IPs. Sorry, VPN IPs. Okay, so you can just go and allow the virtual machine to access from the specific IP only. Okay, so I'll just close this out and I'll deprovision this Bastion service basically, because again it will exhaust my limit unnecessary. So I'll just go and delete this service basically. Installation will take some time. So we'll go back to our virtual machine again. Okay. Right. So connect option explain. Any doubts, any issues? If not, and if you have anything, just put it in the chat or ask me anytime. Okay. The next option is start. Okay, definitely it is related to start a virtual machine. If you want to do a quick restart of a virtual machine, you can do it. If you want to stop it, okay. Again, hibernate is a mode that we have seen. It's a kind of a sleep mode that if you want to put your virtual machine in a sleep mode, you can use this feature. Okay. After that, a capture option here. Okay. Now, if you remember, like a while ago, I was talking about a third-party publisher images, okay, which are there with the Microsoft. Okay, so how these guys go and create the images, right? So this capture is nothing but it's related to that only. Okay, so what does capture it is? It is nothing but it is creating a image for you. Okay, what is the image here? Image is nothing but a defined set of instruction for the hardware configuration, some user settings, some network setting, or something related to application or software settings. Okay, which are predefined or pre-built inside that image. Okay. Now, for an example, just to understand this very in a basic or layman term, let's say for an example, you want to use a virtual machine for a SQL. You want to use a virtual machine as a SQL server. Okay. So in a traditional approach, what do? Is we go and create a virtual machine, and then after that we go and install SSM, a SQL Server Management Studio inside that virtual machine. Okay. After that, what do is we configure a port number wherein from where our actual database services access. Okay, and from there you need to go and enable that port number inside the virtual sorry inside a Windows firewall. Okay, and then you allow the traffic for that virtual machine to and fro, right? So all that setting needs to be configured by Azure admin. But again, that is very time consuming, right? Because in order to do a, install SSMS, and then after that configuring the firewall, some network setting. If you want to provide an access to a specific user, okay, again you need to go and invest a lot of time to configure these things. Okay. But what this capture will do, this capture will help you to do this configuration only once. Okay, and after that what you can do is you can create an image out of it, and you can publish that image to a image gallery, and you can utilize this image to any of the resource or the project that you want, wherein you have a requirement to go and create a virtual machine with the database service. All right, got this one? So that is the purpose of creating an image from a virtual machine. Clear it,
Yes.
Yes.
guys? Yes, no bola करो at least. Okay. So, ठीक है? So this is how we can go and create an image. Now, inside the configuration, what do we have is we have a project details. Okay, so currently I'm under a subscription which is called free trial. Again, and there is a group. This is AZ-104 3RI. After that, you see instant details region I'm selecting here, that is UK South. The next option is share image to Azure Compute Gallery, right? So as I mentioned, like what is happening is once you have created image successfully, what it does is it goes and upload an image to a Azure Gallery. Okay, so Azure Gallery, it's something that as an acting as a central repository. Okay, from where anyone can go and pull up the image that they want to utilize. Okay, so let's say for an example, I'm working for project A, and some one of you are working for project B, C, D. Okay, now we all have a similar requirement, but definitely, like if you are hosting an application, either you will go with a PaaS service, or you will host your services on a virtual machine in order to save a cost. Okay, so let's say we have a low budget, we are hosting all of our services on a virtual machine, and we all need to go and have a same image. So rather than creating a virtual machine for all of that project, again installing and configuring this network bit, it will be a time consuming for all of us. So instead of that, what I will do, I as an admin, what I will do, I'll just go and create an image. Okay, and I'll ask you guys that if you have some sort of requirement, you can go to that particular Azure gallery. Okay, and you can pull up that image and you can deploy a virtual machine. So once you create a virtual machine with that particular image, what you will have all that preset configurations which is already there. Okay, along with the firewall, whatever the configuration that you do. All right, so that is nothing but a image gallery or Azure Compute Gallery. Okay, where you can go and share that. After that, automatically delete this virtual machine after creating an image. So basically what is happening is this is nothing but a generalizing or specializing of a virtual machine. Okay, so in the generalizing, what it does is basically it stripping off all the network configuration. Okay, so there are, again in this one as well, there are two things, okay, that I'll explain here when we'll see this operating system state, I guess. Yeah, general and specialized. Okay, but when you go and create a image of a virtual machine, basically that virtual machine will not be of use. Why? Because you are creating an image of it. Okay, so at that time it says automatically build this virtual machine after creating an image. So by default, if you want, you can check this, otherwise you will, that virtual machine will not be of use. Okay, so you get an option to go and set it to delete. After that, you have a gallery details. Okay, so it says target Azure Compute Gallery. So At the moment, I don't have any sort of galleries which is created where I can go and upload that image. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just go and click on create new, and I'll create a gallery. Something must be contents number underscores not like the capsule. Okay, yeah, let's accept that. Yeah, so I'll create a gallery with this and I'll click on OK here. Okay, so this will go and create a gallery with this specified name and wherein my image will be uploaded to this gallery. Okay, after that, I have an option for operating system state. Okay, now what is operating system state here? There are two things. The one is generalized and the second is the specialized. Okay, so in generalized, what happens when you generalize the settings? Let's say now take an example of SSMS only. Okay, so you deployed a virtual machine wherein you have installed SQL Server Management, but on top of it again you have a firewall configuration which you have made in terms of accessing that SQL service over a specific port. Okay, so you have to configure some inbound and outbound tool with the Windows firewall system. Let's say for an example you have some different user settings that you have configured. You want your guest users or organization users to go and access this service. Okay, so you have configured or you have some specific user setting. So when you go with the generalized, what it does is it does not have to do with any sort of a hardware configuration or a network configuration or the user setting. What it does is it goes and vanish or strip off all that settings. It will just see or it will just have that application or software related configuration. It will just keep it. Apart from that, it will strip off everything from this one and it will go and give you a plain image. So if I go and create an image which is generalized. So in that case, what will happen is I will have a SQL server installed on that virtual machine, but I'll not have a firewall rule created or some user settings which we have configured for my organization that will not be available with that virtual machine. Okay, but at the same time, if you go with the specialized, you will have all that options which are available. Okay, so in the specialized one, you will have all the user settings, all the network related setting or any hardware configuration along with the software that you have installed. So in the specialized one, it will come up with the all that. But see why it has an option of generalized and specialized. It is because this network setting or the user setting depends on the project requirement or the project security. Okay, it's not mandated that each and every project will have a same sort of settings or same sort of onboarding process for users to that particular server. Okay, that's the reason we have a two different option. And how do we generalize or specialize this? That I will show you here. So if you go to the run option here, under that you need to type sysprep. Okay, so once you click on a sysprep, you by default you're being redirected to this option. And after that, if you execute a sysprep, I just need to put up my credential. Right. So now here you see by default, it is creating a specialized image for you. Okay. But if you want that image to be generalized, you get an option as in generalized. Okay. So if I click on OK, what will happen is it will create an image of this virtual machine. Okay. And most of the time, what do we need to do? We need to select a shutdown. Okay. Because if you go with the shutdown option as a reboot, what will happen is it will create an image for you, but it will stuck. Okay. In the reboot stage. Because why? Because the virtual machine is set to reboot. Okay, so when you're creating a generalized image, you have to go and select a shutdown option and you get an option to check as in generalized. Okay, default it is a specialized image, but if you want it to be a generalized, you can go and check this box. And if I click on OK here, it will create a image for me. Okay, you can try the same option with your with your laptop as well, but please make sure that this will create some issues with your operating system. Okay, why? It's because it is creating a image of your machine. Okay, so that's a very risky thing that you can always do a practice with a virtual machine, because if you're not able to access that VM, that is all right, you can go and deprovision it and you can provision a new one. Okay, so that's how the gallery details. Okay. Then after that, a target VM image definition. Okay. So again, we need to go and create an image definition. Okay, what is the image definition? It is nothing but what is the image that you want to set for this one. Okay, so you get an option here to configure a publisher, offer, and a SKU. Okay, so since my base image is something which is a 2022 data center, okay, right? So if you want to go with some other flavors, other options, that also you can configure. It's just that you need to go and check this offer or the SKU from that particular image that you are referring to. Okay, you can do that. So in the definition name, you need to go and put a name of the definition. Top, top, right? So you need to go and put a definition name here, okay? And then after that, these are the default options which you didn't get a chance to reconfigure it, because see, you cannot switch the platform, like you are configuring or creating an image of a Windows platform and you can create a VM image definition as a Linux now. So that's the reason this options are grayed out. Generation, I guess that we have already talked. By default, whatever the resource that you create, that gets created with the Gen 2 itself. Security type is again trusted launch security settings, which is with the default. Architecture is also explained x64. Okay. Then these are the couple of options that you want to configure: so accelerator networking, hibernation. So that's not mandated to go with each and every option that you want. You can always go with the plain configurations. Okay. So this is how you can go and create a VM image definition. Okay. After that, you need to go and provide a image version number. Okay. So there is a version that you can create. So, okay. So let's say, for an example, you have created an image of this particular virtual machine, but let's say tomorrow you have some other requirement. Okay. For this one. So what you can do is you can again create a version of it. All right, and you can publish it to the your compute gallery. So in order to go and maintain a version, you can specify the version. So I'll just put it something like 0.0.1. Okay, so that is nothing but the versioning. Exclude from the latest, that is nothing but, let's say for an example, if you're creating a latest version of this one, so this current image will be excluded, and a latest will be available to provision the another virtual machine from the image. Okay, end of life date is something, basically, that is something like, you can specify to understand this better. Okay, you have an option, right? Like uh, for an example, there is some sort of a resource. Okay, so there is an end of life or expiry, you can say. So, and what do we understand of this end of life date is, after that you can use it, but this is something which is recommended, that that's the end of, or that's the expiry of this particular image. Okay, so to understand this in a very basic term, you go and purchase something from a store. Let's say you buy a face cream. Okay, and which has an expiry of so and so date, let's say 5th of May. Okay, but after that also you can use it, but there are some conditions, like you might be, you might interact with some sort of skin allergies or rashes. Okay, so that's a very basic example. So that is nothing but after expiry, you can specify expiry for that image. Okay, and after that, next option is shallow replication. Shallow replication is nothing but, once you configure it, you will not get an option to configure the replication of this image. Okay, why? It is because when you create a shallow replication, it slow down the process, and it will create, or it will keep that image in the specific location where it is located. Okay, but if you uncheck this option, what will happen is, it gives an option to create a replica count of this virtual machine to a different location. Okay, so by default, I'm having in the UK South, but I get an option to configure a number of other regions where I can go and create a replica of this image. Okay, again, why do we need to create a replica? Is again to let's say if any of the region goes down, I need to go and have my image or anything, a resource that needs to be available with the maximum SLA. Okay, and then next is the tags, and after that you can go and review and create. Okay, so I have a couple of details which are pending with the basic tag. That's the reason it is failed, but you can go and create an image out of it, and you can use that image to create a virtual machine. क्लियर है? कुछ डाउट है इसमें किसी को? थोड़ा आई गेस थोड़ा
No.
हेवी लग रहा है क्या गाइस, कि बहुत ज्यादा डीप इन डेप्थ कॉन्फ़िगरेशंस में जा रहा है, ऐसा कुछ लग रहा है क्या?
No, sir.
No? Okay. If you find it, let me know. If you're not able to digest this stuff, let me know. We'll just skip it for a while. we'll go with the very plain things. Okay, अगर थोड़ा डाइजेस्ट करने के लिए प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है तो बताओ मेरे को सब चीजें, क्योंकि थोड़ा दिस कम्स अंडर अ हायर कॉन्फ़िगरेशन. ओके, सो दैट्स द रीजन. No worries.
Sure, sir.
The next is the delete option, refresh, open in mobile. These are very self-explanatory. Feedback is again, if you have any sort of queries, concerns, you can always raise it with the Microsoft, and these people reach out to you with the responses. Okay. And the last option is CLI and the PowerShell, right? So, guys, as I mentioned, we have a number of options to provision, deprovision, or perform any sort of an operation with respect to that service, right? So if I want to create a service, I get an option to create it with a manual way, or the other ways, like I can introduce templates, basically JSON templates, ARM template, or a bicep template, or a third party tool, something like a Terraform, which is an HashiCorp language. Okay, so with the help of all that, I can go and create a resource. But on the other side, there is a default scripting utility which is available with the Microsoft, that is nothing but a Azure PowerShell or a Azure CLI. So that also help us to go and configure these services, or create, deploy, deprovision, what sort of an operation that you want to perform, you can do it with the scripting language. Okay, so there are two default scripting language which are available with Microsoft. The first one is the PowerShell, and the second is the CLI. Okay, now what are the base of this language? Everyone knows the Windows PowerShell, right? So Windows PowerShell is a scripting language which is specifically used for the Windows operating system. Okay, so since since Azure is a Microsoft product, okay, so Microsoft has introduced some sort of a script wherein, with the help of that script, you can go and access this virtual machine with the PowerShell scripting. Okay, and a CLI is something which is a cross-platform. Why? Because see, what is happening is, let's say you are using a Windows operating system for this particular virtual machine or any sort of resource. But tomorrow, let's say if you have Ubuntu operating system or a Mac. Okay, so at that time you will not have a PowerShell which is predefined or pre-installed on that virtual machine. Why? Because the base of the operating system is different. All that operating system are the Ubuntu based operating system or a Linux based operating system. Okay, not Ubuntu but a Linux flavor operating systems. Okay, so you will not have a PowerShell which is installed. You might need to do some sort of a workaround, and with the help of that you can install a PowerShell. There is a way, but by default this is not available. So in order to get through all that things, Microsoft has introduced a CLI, that is nothing but a cross platform that works on any of the operating system, because the base of the CLI, that is a Node.js, that works on a Node.js. It has a different sort of a commands which are available and which are pretty much similar with the PowerShell itself. Okay, the only difference is that the CLI is used for the cross-platform, and the PS or the PowerShell is specifically used for the Windows operating system. Okay, got the difference? Now, if I click on a CLI and a PowerShell here, okay, you see a number of bunch of commands which are available. What the first one says, AZ-VM start. Okay, so it has an example, like if you want to start a virtual machine, you can use that, and it gives you an example command as well, which is AZ-VM start, wherein I need to specify a resource group, that is -hyphen resource group name of the virtual machine, and the subscription ID. Okay, so you can perform this sort of an operation with the help of an Azure CLI. So if you see here, like AZ VM start, VM stop, VM deallocate, restart, auto shutdown. So there are a couple of options, and it's not limited to the option that you see. These are the very frequent options which are being used by a Azure admin. But if you want to go a more in-depth operations, what you can do is you can click on this link, okay, wherein you will see a number of operations that you can take care with the Azure CLI. Okay, so these are the commands basically which are available here. So you see guys here, like a bunch of commands which are available, and with the help of that you can see or you can manage what sort of an operations that you want to do with this VM. Okay, even if you want to create a virtual machine with the help of CLI or PowerShell, yes, you can do it. Okay, so easy VM create, and these are the parameters that you need to configure, like what is the name, what is the resource group for that, what should be the username, password, and whatnot. So many other parameters which are available here. And Microsoft has provided you a default examples as well. Okay, in order to go on, uh, to deploy this particular virtual machine. Okay, same thing goes for the PowerShell as well. If I click on a PowerShell here, I have a number of options. These are the default commands which can be used to, uh, you know, uh, used to handle with the operating system. Sorry, with the Azure virtual machines. Start ACM, stop, restart. Okay. And again, if I click on this one, here also I have a bunch of commands for the PowerShell. So I'll just share this articles with you, though you will have it. Right, one, I'll just share it for the.
Is there any specific advantage of using CLI to configure the virtual machines or any other applications?
Yeah, see, definitely the advantage is there. Why? It's because see, when you go and try to deploy things with the manual intervention, you need to or you have to go with a lot of configurations, right? So let's say, for an example, if you're creating a virtual machine, you have to configure so many things. What is the availability side zone and blah blah blah, right? But once you have this script ready with you, let's say, for an example, if I'm trying to create a virtual machine with the PowerShell, I need to go and configure this all sort of things in a once. Okay. Once I have that script ready, what I can do is, let's say, maximum changes will happen in terms of a image or the configuration, hardware configuration that I'm choosing for this one. Okay. So I just need to change this to my two parameters and I can quickly go and deploy a service. Okay. Wherein it will be deployed in a few seconds. See, because and then if you're choosing an option from the GUI itself, in the backend, Microsoft is executing scripts only. Okay,
Yeah.
they have no other way to go and manage things at the back end. They are also managing things with the help of script only. So if in order to improve the provisioning of your services, okay, because most of times you will observe, I mean, you guys have not worked with Azure, but most of the time you will observe the provisioning time or the deployment time with the help of a script, that is pretty much less as compared to the manual way or the UI way. Why? Because there's the intervention of the UI and the script, and then you get a result out of it, right? But if you directly introduce the script to your environment or to your provisioning state, you will have that definitely lesser
Yeah.
time
Okay.
to deploy this. And
Okay.
again, the another thing is in terms of configuration, there are a couple of things which may not be available with the default GUI option. Okay, so you can always do and take care of those things with the PowerShell as well. Okay, so there is a number of things that you can take care with the PowerShell or the CLI. All right,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, that's the reason we can go and introduce scripting. But it's up to you guys. Like if you're fine with the scripting, you can always go, and if not, then you can always go with this one. Okay. I'll just take a 2 minutes breather. Okay. I'll just get a glass of water. Okay. I'm back. Understood. This is the CLI and the PowerShell, right? So this is how we can go and actually access the resource with the help of PowerShell and CLI. We'll see a quick practical demo for this, PowerShell and CLI. But in terms of theory or the basic concepts, anyone has any doubt? Uh,
I have just one question regarding CLI. Suppose I create a virtual machine using the normal UI interface. After
mhm.
that, can I generate a, script for that so that I can use it in future for from CLI? mean,
See, you can generate a script, but that is, I guess, ARM template. So under the automation blade here, if you see export template, basically, okay. So this will go and generate a ARM template for you, okay. So
okay,
that template, it's in the format of a JSON, basically, that you can utilize to go and deploy your resources. So at the moment, it's generating a template. So we'll just wait for it, but I'll show
okay,
you how exactly it works. But if you're talking about a PowerShell or the CLI script, no, you will have to go and configure it by your way. Okay. I guess script is also, yeah, script is also available here because that was not previously there. But if you go with the template here, so see, it has a default schema. I mean, that's a basic structure like a schema, content version parameters, and the resources variables. Okay. And then the output, that's a default layout of your ARM template, and when you need to go and manage your resources, how that resource is being provisioned. Okay. So if you see schema that you need to mention, that's something but the schema of your Azure, okay, the schema version and template basically. Then the content version is again related to a content that you, a versioning basically that you want to maintain a version of your template. Okay, parameters are nothing but the configurable parameters that you want to introduce. A variable is again you all are very well understood what is variable, and then the resource, what is the actual resource that you are trying to deploy here. Okay, so at the
okay.
moment, sorry.
No, no, okay, fine.
Yeah. So at the moment, if you're trying to deploy a virtual machine, it has a resource type, which is something like Microsoft.compute/virtual machine. Okay. So that's a default type. If you're deploying a PaaS service, it will come something different here. The type is different. Okay. And then the properties, and then the next bit is the parameter file. Okay. So which has the name of your virtual machine and whatnot, like a couple of other things. Okay. So this is how the templates are there. If you're going with the script, I have not explored the script option yet actually because we are not using it. But yeah, I guess it's just redirecting you to the default page of scripting, but it is not generating a script for you. Okay. So what you can do
Okay,
is you can always go with this options to create a VM and you can generate the script as per your convenience. Okay.
okay, fine.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So what we were supposed to do, yeah, we were doing a CLI and a PowerShell, a quick demo, right? So I'll just open a PowerShell. All right. So in order to go and access this particular thing, what the first thing is you must be having a PowerShell on your Windows operating system, right? So what do I need to do is I just need to go and search for a PowerShell. Did I misspell it? Okay. PowerShell. Okay. So I'll click on this Windows PowerShell. That will open up PowerShell console for me. Okay. Now, in terms of accessing this service, now you guys need to understand few basics. I cannot go and actually directly jump onto a script which is available with the PowerShell here. Let's say if I want to, start a VM, I cannot go and actually go and copy the script and execute it here. Why can I do it? Why? It's because it needs to be authenticated. This PowerShell will not understand where exactly I'm trying to execute that script, right? So I need to authenticate myself that I, as in Rohit, I want to go on access to this particular Azure account wherein I'm trying to execute a script which is start AZVM or stop AZVM. Okay. So what I need to do first thing is I need to go and authenticate myself. Okay. So in order to authenticate myself, I need to put a command that is called connect easy account. If I click on enter here, that should giving me a pop-up basically to go and sign up. I'll use another account. Just put and click on next here. I will need to enter the password. And click on sign in here. Okay. Now you see it is giving me after I'm connecting successfully to this particular machine. It is giving me a details like which account. This is the account name which I used to log in. Which subscription do I have? I do have a free trial subscription. That's a tenant ID basically, and the environment is Azure Cloud. Okay. Now it understood, or we can understand that we are connected to the actual Azure tenant which we are trying to. Okay, and we are under the same subscription because we don't have a multiple option to select a subscription here. Okay, so I'm under a free trial subscription. Now since my this virtual machine is in the start stage, okay, if I want to go and stop this virtual machine, I can go and actually use this command. Okay, so for now I'll just copy this command. I'll open a notepad here, fresh notepad, the spaces command here, and just try to understand what exactly this command says. Should I copy the partial one? Oh no, that's a CL exactly. Yeah. Copy. So that's a command for the PowerShell. Okay. If you see here, what operation I'm performing, that is stopping Azure virtual machine. What's the name of the resource group? That is AZ-104 underscore 3RI, and the name of the virtual machine that is AZ-104 PM. Okay. Now, if I go and execute this command, what I'm expecting that this virtual machine will be stopped. So if I copy this command as it is, see, you will require to go and modify this command as per a requirement, but I'm just trying to give you a basic example. Okay, so I can also go and configure this sort of operations as well, or this parameters, but at the moment we will not go with it. Okay, we'll just go with the plain things. So mm, okay, execute this command here. Yeah, so now this is asking me, do you want to proceed? I'll go to yes, and ideally it should go and stop this virtual machine. Okay, so this operation will take of seconds more, but ideally it's in the process of stopping a virtual machine basically here. So if you refresh it, maybe you'll be able to see it. Yeah. So you see, you have that prior to that, you have that start option was grayed out for you. Okay. Now you see the start option is enabled. Why? Because the virtual machine is stopped. And if you see, you will see the results here. So operation ID, which has performed, that's operation ID basically, which has performed a stop activity for the virtual machine. Status is succeeded. Start time is this, and end time. If there is any error, it will specify here. Okay. So that is very basic example of doing this executing PowerShell script on a virtual machine. Okay, but you can do, or you can do a lot of other configurations or other scripting things with the virtual machine. Okay, so for that, what you can do, you can explore this article which I've shared with you. Okay, same thing goes for the CLI as well. Okay, now in order to go and do this start and stop operation or any sort of default operation, again, what I need to do is I need to authenticate myself to the Azure CLI. So, see, there is a different ways like to access the CLI. So, if you want to install a CLI on your virtual machine, what you can do is you can download the CLI Azure CLI from the internet. So I can share you the link as well. For Windows, yes, that's a MSI file basically. Yeah. So you can actually go and download this. Okay, the CLI, and you can set a path environment variable. Okay, and you can access it with your command prompt, basic command prompt as well. Okay, so I'll just share it in chat, you guys. Okay, so this is to download Azure CLI. So I have this already installed on my machine. So I'll just open command prompt basically. Okay, so this is the command from me. Z version. Yeah, so if you see, it gives me a version of Azure CLI. So in order to check like if my CLI installation is successful or no, what I can do is I can go and check with the command that is AZ-104 version. Okay, so uh, just to go through the process, like if you have installed this MSI successfully, what you need to do is you can go with the sorry, environment variable. Okay, and you need to go and set a path. So at the moment, I need to authenticate myself because that's a different machine. So, but you can go and set the environment path, okay, where this particular CLI is getting installed, okay, and you can add a path to it, and you can try to access this CLI over this command prompt, okay. So, in my case, I have already installed, okay. So, this is the current version. Now, if I want to authenticate myself again to the CLI, what I can do is I can put a command that is easy login, okay. So that should give me an option to log into Azure account. So now I'll use my account that is this is let's just ensure so just do one line. Okay. Now it says that you have logged into Microsoft Azure successfully. Okay, and it is redirecting me to go back to the console. Okay, so now here you see in the output cloud name is Azure Cloud Home Tenant ID. So if you can go and match the tenant ID for both of this one, it starts with 5ABA something, right? So it's that. Okay, then after that it has a default ID which is generated. Then the tenant ID again, a username which I used to log in, and type is the user. Okay, now if I want to go and execute a stop command here, what I can do is I can go back to CLI. Sorry, we need to go and start a VM, right? So we can copy this command because we have stopped with the previous command. So just go and use the start command. Okay. So again, see the operation which is being performed as an easy VM start. Okay. Then the resource group name, the name of the VM that we're providing. And by the end of this, we are providing a subscription with the subscription ID. Okay. So I'll just copy this command as it is. Okay. I'll not bother much to go into depth and I'll just go and execute it. Okay, so if I executing, see it had started running this virtual machine. Okay, so the activity which is started in the backend, and if we go and track it here in the UI itself, see now it says that the virtual machine is started. You see now the stop option is enabled. It means that the virtual machine is started for you. Okay, so that is a very basic example of how we can handle or take care of the CLI or the PowerShell operations with the help of this one. Okay, but see you'll be doing a practical hands-on with this one. Okay, so in terms of setting up path or installing, if you have any sort of issues, you can let me know. All right, so this is how we do it with the CLI or the PowerShell. You can explore this number of or the bunch of commands in order to get through. But this is how we can do it. Anyone has any doubt?
No, sir.
No. Clear is Sanket, Akshita, Bhushan. Guys, yes, no, maybe नहीं समझ में आ रहा है तो बोल लो. I'll explain it again. That's not an issue. Silence is always golden. Okay. Right. Next option on the left side, I guess that we have previously explained as well. That's the activity log. Okay. So again, like if you want to track an activity to this particular virtual machine, so if you want to track an activity, you can always go with this option. Okay, and you can track it. So in this particular one, if you see here, create or update virtual machine, which has happened 2 hours ago. Okay, which is created or by this particular ID. Now, deallocation of the virtual machine, like I have stopped this virtual machine, right? So that is nothing but a deallocation. So you see here, the operation name are pretty different here. Okay, it will not say like stop virtual machine or something like that. But it has a different way of saying like deallocation or allocated a virtual machine. So you need to understand what sort of operation that has been performed. If not, what you can do is you can expand this blade and you will see under the JSON here, you will be able to track like what activity has done here. Okay, or you can see in the change history as well. But at the moment, it's not reflecting. I guess it takes some time to load. But in the JSON file, you can always go and check what operation has been performed. Okay, if you're not able to understand what this operation names is. Okay, so this is all about the activity logs, and this we have already explained in the previous one. Okay. Access management is again the same one. Okay, if you want to check access or if you want to provide a role assignment to someone, okay, you can always go and click on add role assignment and provide an access to that particular user or the entity whomsoever is trying to access this virtual machine. Okay, tags again are self-explanatory. This is for the identification purpose, wherein you can put a tag something with the project name or the admin who is taking care of that. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to put a tag here. Okay, it gives you full liberty basically to create a tag like in a key value pair basically. Okay, so that's for your identification. Now important one here is that is a diagnostic and a solve problem. Okay, so in last lecture, I guess we have discussed like a default utility which is by default available with the Azure resources. Okay, so if you are facing some issues with the default operations, okay, like start or stopping virtual machine or accessing a virtual machine, what does diagnose and solve problem, that gives you a basic solution to your service. Okay, so that performs a basic operations to your service and it gives you a solution. Okay, so let's say to understand this, what this diagnose and solve problem will do. Let's say if I'm trying to access this virtual machine over the port number 3389. Okay, and out of this one, if I go to this cannot connect to this VM. Okay, so if I click on this troubleshooting, and if I have that port number which is not enabled in my network setting, what I'm expecting this to say that if you're trying to access a virtual machine on a port number 3389, the port number 3389 is not enabled on the virtual network. Okay, so in order to go and access this VM, you need to have that port enabled. Okay, that's a default IDP. So that's how these default utilities are being used to to get resolved this sort of basic issues. Okay, so if you are facing some sort of a performance issues, you can use that one. The next one is VM restarted and stop unexpectedly. So sometimes it happens because of some let's say you have not gone with the availability zone. Okay, and if you're deploying a virtual machine with the same in the same zone or the same data center, so that could happen that your virtual machine will stop unexpectedly or that get restarted. Okay, that could be because of the fault domain or an update domain wherein the virtual machine will go under a update stage in that particular time. Okay, so that could be happening. So if you're trying to execute or if you face that sort of issue, you can use this troubleshooting. Okay, the next is Windows Update, guest patching, or OS upgrade, right? So if you have any sort of issues while performing this sort of activity, you can check that. So there are so many other troubleshooters which are available here. Okay, so you can always go and explore it by yourself. Okay, it's a basic step. It will just ask you for a basic detail like which port that you're using, what is the IP from where you're trying to access. So you just need to put up a basic details and it will give you solution to it. Okay, if you're not able to fulfill it, you can always reach out to you have a gallery or you must be having a different support solution which is available. You can get your issue resolved with that. Okay, so that is the default diagnosis and a solve problem. The next is the connected. So we have seen a different connect option. Okay, so that's a default RDP, just in time, and a Bastion. Okay, so that we have already explored. Bastion is again something that we have looked into. Next is Windows Admin Center. Right. So now, prior to that, this option was not available with the Azure Virtual Machine. Why? Because if you like, it was not introduced with the virtual machine. But now this is an option which is available. That is Windows Admin Center. So whatever the activities that you are doing as an admin with the Windows operating system, you can go and actually do that activity from the Azure portal as well. So sometimes what happens is like if you just want to do some basic enabling port or if you want to do some sort of firewall changes or anything like that. So every time you need to go and do an IDP log into this virtual machine, sometime you may encounter an issue wherein this virtual machine gets slow. Okay, so that's a time consuming. So what Microsoft does is Microsoft gives you provision to handle that sort of basic operation, a basic admin operation that you can take care via uh, this Windows Admin Center utility. Okay, so with the help of that, you can actually go and do this. So what it is like, if you see here, a seamless server management, it does modern server tools, increase control. Okay, so that is nothing but a basic thing, like you will have a control from the Azure portal itself rather than logging into an VM. Okay, so now it says like if you can configure the inbound port. Okay, this open this port for me. So basically what it will do, it will go and create a firewall role inside that virtual machine and it will open the port for me. Okay, that's the basic operation it will do. Right. After that, you have a network setting. Okay. So in the network setting, you will see there are a number of options like a virtual network or a subnet, then public IP, private IP, network interface. Okay. So this is a bit vast topic actually. So that will take at least like half an hour or 45 minutes to explain. Okay. So maybe what we'll do is we'll just try to cover this up in the tomorrow's lecture.